to prove that the girl before him was the wife he'd lost in another lifetime, he dared to enter her room under the veil of night. But the moment he stepped in, she was already awake. Once a soldier in a past life, her instincts were sharp, her body always ready. Without turning, she grabbed the blade she'd once demanded from her brother, meant for peace of mind, not actual use, and swung it behind her. The strike barely missed. The room was cloaked in shadows, his face impossible to see. She didn't hesitate, another swift motion, but this time, a firm hand seized her wrist midair, stopping her. In a blur, he pinned her to the bed before she could cry out. Then he spoke, his voice unfamiliar, yet heartbreakingly known. He called her by a name that belonged to another world. "Shukyan, I knew it was you. Did you think I wouldn't recognize my wife's energy?" Her mind emptied. He brushed his fingers across a faint wound on her lip, and something within her stirred. That sensation. Her guiding power flowed before she could even control it. It connected them instantly. For him, it was like a thirst finally quenched. The years of torment, of power gnawing at his sanity, faded. In that moment he knew it had to be her. He was no ordinary man. He belonged to the highest rank of sentinels, blessed and cursed with immense dual powers. Sentinels like him relied on guides to stay balanced. Without one, they would unravel. And he had. In their former life, she had been a mere B-class guide, far too weak to stop his descent into madness. But she couldn't let him die. She had leapt into the inferno to save him, guiding him through fire and anguish, her spirit refusing to let go even as her body burned. In her last breath, she whispered words she'd never dared say in life. "Maybe you didn't love me, but thank you for standing by me." With a final kiss on his cheek, she set him free. "I release you. May I meet someone who truly loves me in my next life." He came back to his senses holding her charred body. She was gone, and the moment he realized it, the beast within roared back to life, this time fiercer, darker, unstoppable. Far from that fiery past, the imperial palace burst into celebration. Nobles from every corner gathered for the most anticipated banquet in years. Somewhere, a girl stirred from slumber. In this life, her name was different, but the warmth of her family was real. She had doting parents and a brother who adored her. "Even fresh from bed, my sister could outshine the stars," he teased, earning a scolding from their mother. Their father only laughed. "Of course, she's our pride." She blushed, unaccustomed to such love. She was grateful. In this world, which strangely mirrored a novel she'd once read, her wish had been granted. The book told the story of a girl who crossed worlds to become a saint. She had read it for one reason. The second male lead had been the spitting image of her former husband. And tonight, the saintess would be introduced at the royal banquet. As the prince entered, golden hair, sapphire eyes, the crowd gasped, and right behind him was the man she never expected to see. Jet black hair, frost blue eyes, a cold presence sharper than any blade. Duke Hill-Lert. It wasn't just his face, it was everything. The guarded posture, the razor-sharp alertness, even during moments that should feel safe. He was just like her husband. In their past life, she had been chosen to be his exclusive guide, not for her rank, but for their rare compatibility. Back then, she had loved him quietly. When her superiors told her he wanted to marry her, she couldn't believe her luck. But she quickly realized his feelings didn't match hers. Now, seeing him again, she couldn't breathe, and standing beside him was the saintess. Her name pierced Ailen's heart, Shu Yun, a face she once knew well, a rival, a threat. "Isn't she beautiful?" her brother asked. "She is," she replied. But you're the prettiest, he grinned. His silly words grounded her. This time, she wasn't alone. Her family gave her strength. She didn't notice that while everyone else was admiring the saintess, Hill's eyes were locked on her. Soon it was time for her coming-of-age ceremony. As the star bearing her name reached its zenith, she whispered a prayer. I still don't understand why I was sent here, but please let this family stay safe and happy. Light surrounded her, warm and radiant. She had finally found what she'd longed for, unconditional love. While waiting for the carriage, her father asked what gift she wanted. Her brother joked, a bow and arrow, remember? Her mother froze. That was dangerous. 10 years ago, their real daughter had died in a fire. When she miraculously woke up in her coffin, they believed it a divine miracle. Her mother had since guarded her like glass. Mother, I'm grown now. I don't want to hide anymore while Dad and brother face danger. Her mother hesitated, and before they could resolve it, Ailen collapsed, burning with fever. When she awoke, she was in a familiar room, the one she'd shared with her husband in her past life. Was it real? Hill sat beside her, placing a cool cloth on her head. Sleep a bit more, he whispered. She mumbled for more ice. He chuckled and fed her a piece, then another from his own mouth. But it was just a dream. In reality, she'd been unconscious for 3 days. Her family panicked until Hill appeared. He arranged a doctor, opened a portal for them. She hadn't expected his help here. The fever was a sign. She was awakening as a guide. But how? In the original story, only the prince and Hill were sentinels, and Shu Yun was the sole saint. Something had changed. Hill was already suspicious. At the banquet, she had spoken Shu Yun's name before introductions. That couldn't be a coincidence. And now she had awakened. What she didn't know was that Hill had also returned, only 2 weeks earlier. His mission? Find his wife, no matter the cost. Since returning, he'd been haunted by her image. Visions of her blurred the line between memory and madness. His powers, long suppressed, threatened to consume him again. The holy water no longer worked. He might have to accept guidance from the saintess, unless that girl truly was her. In his past life, he never knew he was a sentinel. His younger brother, Aiden, had suffered from strange episodes, voices in his mind. Hill finally realized his brother wasn't sick. He was a psychic-type sentinel. Now, reunited, Aiden clung to Hill. When they were together, the voices stopped. Hill warned him, never accept guidance from the wrong person, not even the saintess. Aiden agreed. Years ago, Hill had trusted Shu Yun. She'd led him through a dimensional gate and left him stranded. The government had used him, tried to bond him to Shu Yun, but their souls didn't match. Only one person ever truly matched him, Shu Qian. Now he had a request. Come with me to Clockshire. I need you to read that girl's mind. After awakening, Ailen noticed strange changes. The scar on her arm had turned into a delicate, flower-shaped mark. Her mother, now more lenient, allowed her to train. She took up archery, not for survival, but to protect those she loved. The wind howled as she lost her arrow. It veered, then curved, striking dead center. Her father and brother cheered, amazed. She blushed under their praise. What she didn't know was that, watching from afar, Hill had guided the arrow. He didn't even realize he'd done it. Her every move echoed his wife's. Could 2 souls really be that alike? The girl's father noticed him. Hill approached and made a polite excuse. Just passing by, he said. But the man narrowed his eyes. Then why were you staring at my daughter? Hill hesitated, then smiled. It's rare to see such skill in a young noblewoman. The man melted with pride. She's incredible, isn't she? Hill had found the key, her father's love. By the end of their chat, the Baron invited Hill to stay with them. Ailen was horrified. The man she was trying to avoid had just moved in. Dinner that night was a minefield. Hill kissed her hand. Her brother did the same. Her heart raced. She avoided his gaze, but he watched her quietly. Even now, she couldn't help but feel it, that strange connection that defied time, worlds, and even fate itself. Why did he have to reappear now, just when she was starting to find peace? If her family had been even slightly better off, they would never have been forced into dealings with him after the portal incident. The Clockshire lands were constantly plagued by monsters. So much of their resources were consumed by defense efforts that they couldn't even afford a proper transport gate. Then, a thought struck her. In the story she once read, the Saints gained fame by sharing the unique flavors of her hometown cuisine. Since the Saints had just arrived, this was the perfect moment. If she acted fast, she might make a name and fortune for herself. Far away, Hill sat in his quarters, deep in thought. If Ailen were truly a guide, her instincts would have released energy when they met. That's what usually happened with newly awakened ones. But she'd shown no signs, not even a trace. His brows furrowed. Could it be? Could she be a sentinel? A wild theory, but possible. The realization hit him hard, so hard he didn't notice the smoke curling from the scorched cushion beneath him. Was he only imagining her as Shukian? Was it his yearning for the past that made him hope she could guide him? One afternoon, the Baron invited Hill to witness the knight's training. The entire garrison buzzed with excitement. Hill was a war hero, a living legend. Ailen watched as the soldiers, even the most seasoned among them, reacted to him in awe. She couldn't blame them. She had once looked at him the same way. But there was something different about this Hill. He was younger, calmer, more diplomatic. A simple phrase from him could boost morale like magic. One brave soul stepped forward, asking for a spar. Rumor had it Hill wasn't just a sentinel, he was also a master of the sword. The Baron looked uneasy, ready to intervene, but Hill quietly picked up a blade. Across the yard, his younger brother stood hesitantly, too timid to join, yet too curious to walk away. Ailen noticed and approached. "Shall we watch together?" she asked, with a gentle smile. The boy blushed and followed her. From that moment on, he treated her like a cherished older sister. The duel wasn't a match. It was a demonstration of overwhelming skill. Hill fought effortlessly, parrying the knight's attacks with a single hand. One strike, and it was over. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even Ailen's younger brother couldn't hide his excitement. "Please, for my sake, will you duel with me too?" he asked. Hill nodded, but before they could begin, a shrill alarm rang out. Monsters were attacking again. The Baron turned toward Ailen. "You and the young Duke must return to safety," he said, but Hill was already there. Wind surged beneath their feet, lifting them into the sky. "This will be faster," Hill told them, vanishing in a gust. As they flew, dread crept into their hearts. Aiden cried out, reaching toward his brother, fading in the distance like a falling star. The threat was subdued quicker than usual, thanks to Hill's terrifying strength. But the cost was steep. His powers, potent as they were, took a brutal toll on his body. Blood stained his lips as he tried to flee the battlefield, but his body gave out, crashing into the forest. When Ailen landed, she let her guard slip, releasing a faint pulse of energy. Aiden shivered, feeling something he couldn't understand. She hurriedly composed herself and sent him back to the estate. "Why are you heading into the mountains? It's dangerous there," he asked, worried. "I just want to check on something. Don't worry," she said, trying to reassure him. But her heart was elsewhere, with her family, with the battlefield. When she arrived, the battle was already over. She should have turned back, but there he was, Hill, collapsed in the clearing. Flames surged wildly from his unconscious form. He was in the throes of a sentinel's breakdown. If left alone, he'd burn the entire mountain down. There was no choice. She began guiding him. The fire dimmed briefly, then roared back, even fiercer. Remote guidance wasn't enough. With a sigh, she stripped her gloves and took his hand, skin to skin. The flames shrank, his features softened, and his breathing calmed. She thought it was over, but then, without warning, he pulled her close. His voice was barely a whisper. Not enough. Then he kissed her. Pain lanced through her lip. He had broken the skin. She shoved him away. "What are you doing?" she cried, but he didn't answer. He only held her tighter, nuzzling into her. "Shh, I missed you so much," he murmured. Was he confusing her with someone else? Or had he truly recognized her? Just as her heart began to waver, he passed out in her arms. When Hill awoke, he felt strangely refreshed, as if someone had guided him. His first thought was of the saints, but the sensation was too familiar, too much like Shukian. His suspicions were confirmed when Aiden innocently shared that holding Ailen's hand had made him feel calmer, the same soothing touch of a true guide. "You held her hand?" Hill asked, voice low, the shadows in his eyes deepening. Aiden stammered under the weight of his brother's gaze. Hill realized he'd overreacted. "I'm sorry. I'm just tired." But something clicked when Aiden mentioned Ailen had gone to the back mountain. Could it be fate? Had the gods given her back to him in a new life? Desperate for answers, he waited until nightfall and quietly slipped into her room. But Ailen wasn't the same woman he remembered. The moment she sensed danger, she was on her feet, blade drawn, slashing without hesitation. When he caught her wrist mid-strike and pushed her to the bed, she nearly screamed, but froze when he whispered her name from a past life. "Shukian, it really is you." He reached for her lip, where the guiding mark still lingered. Her energy flowed out again, and in that moment, their souls reconnected. His agony vanished, but her shock only deepened. "What are you saying?" she asked, pulling away. He looked heartbroken, yet smiled like a madman. "Did I frighten you? I just missed you so much." She backed away, heart racing. "I'm not the person you think I am. I am Ailen Clockshire, and if you enter my room again, I will not hesitate to press charges." The words hit him like a storm. His eyes dimmed. "Forgive me. I was mistaken." He floated away, defeated. As soon as he left, Ailen collapsed to the floor. A small part of her had hoped he would recognize her, but that was the past. She wouldn't be controlled by him again. Hill couldn't comprehend her rejection. Shukian had never looked at him with such indifference. Was he wrong? No, the guiding energy, the way she moved, everything pointed to the truth. She was Shukian. He began shadowing her the very next day. He followed her everywhere, without shame, without subtlety. Ailen was overwhelmed. She couldn't eat, couldn't think. She tried to escape with a ride, only to find him already waiting. "Could we talk?" he pleaded. She turned coldly. "I was going to ride, then I saw you and changed my mind. I just want to talk, just for a little while," he whispered. But this time, she didn't yield. "If you keep this up, I'll tell my parents what you did." And with that, she left him standing alone once again. When her father returned, he subtly urged Hill to move on. But Hill wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. He asked to speak to the Baroness herself. If Ailen truly was his Shukian, this family was now his own. He had to earn their favor. Meanwhile, Ailen ran into Aiden outside, the boy nearly in tears over a harmless caterpillar. She comforted him, teasing him gently. They talked about monsters and family. She encouraged him to ask his brother more questions. "He brought you here because he cares," she said. But Aiden knew the truth. His brother hadn't come for him. He said goodbye and ran off, confused and hurting. And when Ailen returned to the estate, Hill was there again. His face lit up when he saw her, as if nothing else in the world mattered. And perhaps to him, it didn't. The noble's attempt to smooth things over with gold only deepened the insult. What he saw as a generous gesture, the lady of the manor saw as a slap in the face. He stood, flustered, when the young woman entered. To him, she was a beacon of hope, But that hope quickly died. After learning what had happened, she dismissed him with a cold, unyielding glare. Her mother had welcomed him as an act of courtesy, a noble's goodwill. But offering money, that tainted the gesture, turning it into a transaction. They weren't wealthy, but they had their pride. Amused by the awkward scene, the observer barely held back a smirk. And then the noble shifted tactics. He played the victim, speaking of his unstable powers, how he had accidentally scorched the mountain behind the estate and even the furniture in his room. His reasoning was absurd, but it masked a plea for forgiveness. If word spread that someone of his status, one born with sacred gifts, had lost control, it would be a scandal. Surprisingly, the matron was moved. Seizing the moment, he deepened the tale. The observer was in disbelief. This man, who should have stood proud as a bearer of divine strength, was depicting himself as pitiful. "Without a guide," he said with somber eyes, "those like me are incomplete. We burn from within, lost in a desert with no water. Our souls ache until we either wither or find our destined anchor." He paused. "I have found mine. Wouldn't you like to know who she is?" Sensing where he was heading, the mother rose with grace. "Ah, I've just remembered something urgent. Please excuse me." He escorted her with polished charm, drawing a compliment from her lips about his manners. The girl tried to leave too, but he blocked her path gently. "Before lunch, might we speak? Just one question." Cornered by persistence, she reluctantly agreed. He offered another apology for the other night, claiming deep reflection. "May I ask?" he said softly. "You awakened recently, did you not? So how is it that you wield your energy like someone born to it?" He stepped closer. "When a sentinel touches his destiny, her energy answers. You guided me without meaning to." Their hands met again. Energy pulsed between them. But instead of awe, she was enraged. She slapped his hand away. He froze but quickly recovered. "A new guide would release energy unconsciously, but you didn't even flinch, even sealed away, even before an S-class like me. You remained still. It's as if you were already bonded." She narrowed her eyes. "I don't know what you're implying, my lord. If that's all, I'll be leaving." This time he let her go. Yet within, the weight of realization crushed him. He knew every twitch of her lips, every flicker of emotion, because in another life she had been his. Once she had gazed at him with a warmth that defied words. But now? Cold, distant, unreachable. Panic bloomed in his chest. He clutched at the phantom pain where his bond should have been. "If you'd just admit it," he whispered, "that you're mine, I'd give you the world." While he wrestled with longing and rejection, elsewhere, another soul grew restless. The temple's holy guest had arrived, and the prince had yet to hear from his closest friend, gone for over a month. That friend had been the most eager when the sacred prophecy was declared. The moment the saintly figure arrived, a servant rushed in. The crown prince rose eagerly to greet her. Though she appeared serene, she was giddy inside. A man this perfect greeting her with such warmth? She had come under the guise of concern that he had not summoned her since their last connection. Those born of this realm knew little of the bond between sentinel and guide, so she offered her aid without hesitation. He hesitated, then held out his hand. As their palms touched, a pulse of energy surged, but it wasn't enough. His need deepened. Her energy, classified as mid-tier, was insufficient for someone of his stature. But she didn't say that. She simply claimed, "There's more we can do." He accepted her unspoken offer. She sat on his lap, began again. Afterward, she leaned close. "Your Highness, where's the other sentinel?" she asked, her voice dripping with curiosity. He replied honestly, "Inspecting a distant province, but I'll call him back at once." Pleased, she smiled. Before leaving, she inquired, "May I see him tomorrow?" "Of course," the prince promised, masking the irritation that clawed at him. He wanted her attention for himself. When she whispered the other sentinel's name, Hill, he felt his jaw tighten. She left with a final kiss, unaware that the protectiveness sentinels felt toward their chosen wasn't just emotional. It was instinctual, possessive. Alone in her carriage, she reflected on her journey. She hadn't arrived here by accident. While fleeing a failed mission in another world, her phone had glowed, and she'd awakened in this one. A new app now revealed her rank, her mission, to gather the others and complete her bond. But why rush? Here she was revered. There she was overlooked. Here she reigned. Why leave a place where she was finally someone? Meanwhile, the other sentinel had received the prince's summons. He looked at the girl who haunted his memories and his soul. He had only just found her. To leave now, again, felt like being torn apart. But he couldn't risk taking her to the capital. The saints would be there. So would the prince. And both had already begun circling. They returned to the estate. His younger brother offered to retreat to his private quarters. "You don't have to hide anymore." Hill reassured him, "You have me now." Tears welled up in the boy's eyes. He wasn't alone anymore. The next day, Hill arrived at the palace. The prince greeted him warmly. The saint was there, her goal plain. She wanted both of them, but unlike the prince, Hill didn't so much as glance her way. She stepped closer. "You must have suffered greatly. Let me help." He couldn't reveal he'd already bonded with someone else, so reluctantly he accepted. She reached out, but nothing happened. Her energy spilled out aimlessly, and his core remained untouched. Her abilities couldn't reach him. Why? Because his true guide had already claimed him. That sacred bond, the mark, still existed. Panicked and overexerted, the saint collapsed. He took the chance to slip away, heart pounding with revelation. The mark meant she was still his. They were still bound. That also meant she was the same woman, his wife. His desire to return to her intensified, but first he had questions only one person could answer, the high priest. The man greeted him with solemn knowing. "You've come, the one chosen to defy fate." He revealed that another divine message had followed the first. A final chance. Find the one who turned back time. Find the true saint. Hill listened in silence. Then the priest revealed a book, one Hill knew too well, a story he had once read, only to discover it mirrored the world he lived in. In that tale, the man who bore his name was consumed by obsession and ambition, dying alone. But Hill had no intention of becoming that man. "This isn't a prophecy," he said quietly. "It's a tale already told, and I will not follow its path." The priest nodded, relieved. Hope, after all, can be rewritten. The cost of truth, it seemed, could only be paid in blood. The elder advisor bowed his head in quiet reverence. "Only you, my lord, can carry the will of the divine. Please, you must find the true vessel. Whatever aid you require, it is yours." Hill's voice was sharp with disbelief. "Then why is the impostor still allowed to roam free?" The old man sighed, weary. "Because even those who deceive deserve a moment of mercy." Meanwhile, far from palace intrigue, the lady of the manor had been watching. Her daughter denied any fondness for the duke, but a mother's instincts are not so easily fooled. From the first meeting, she had seen the undercurrent between them, something deeper than mere attraction. It wasn't affection, it was inevitability, like two stars pulled into the same orbit by ancient gravity. She didn't resent Hill. In truth, she found him respectable, even admirable. But her daughter's future wasn't hers to freely decide. Noble houses were not run by sentiment. Elders, vassals, and bloodlines spoke louder than any mother's approval. And no matter how noble his title, her daughter, a young woman marked by a scar and mystery, would be treated as an outsider, perhaps even scorned. She still remembered the day her daughter rose from a coffin, reborn, hollow-eyed, and eerily changed. That blank expression haunted her, Not because her child seemed different, but because the miracle of her return could be so easily undone. She had already lost her once. She couldn't bear to lose her again. Back at his estate, Hill read over a letter from his uncle, another attempt to bind him to some noble daughter. His expression darkened. That man hadn't changed, still scheming, still trying to place his own blood beside the Duke's throne, just like before. But this time, Hill had something to protect. Or rather, someone. The Empire, unlike the lands of the common folk, revered status above all. And Hill would use that to anchor her to him, even if it turned her against him. Love, hate, either was better than losing her again. He turned to his steward with fierce purpose. "Prepare gifts. Tomorrow, we send a proposal to the Clockshire estate." The steward blinked in disbelief. "A proposal, Your Grace?" "Select jewels from my mother's collection," Hill continued, undeterred. "Commission the finest dressmaker in the capital. I already know her measurements. You'll bring the fabrics to me." The steward tried to keep up as the Duke rattled off further instructions. "And gifts. Lots of them. Every house in the Clockshire region should know. Let there be no doubt in anyone's mind that she belongs to me." 10 days passed. The estate's front gate groaned under the weight of wagons brimming with gifts. Jewels, silks, exotic goods, an overwhelming display of wealth and intent. "These are from His Grace the Duke of Leichhardt," said the messenger. "And this," he held out a sealed envelope, "is for you, miss." The words "marriage proposal" sent Ailen reeling. Her mother looked equally stunned. "He said he'll come explain in person once his palace business is concluded," the steward added, bowing politely. Ailen's breath caught in her throat. Her father was merely a baron. He couldn't refuse such an offer from a duke, and the sheer excess of the gifts made it clear Hill hadn't even considered rejection a possibility. But Ailen stepped forward and said 2 words that silenced the room. "I refuse." Her mother stared. The steward paled. "Please, miss, these are His Grace's wishes. I must carry them out." "Then carry my answer back to him," she said firmly. "The gifts stay outside." He tried again, suggesting she hold on to them until the Duke arrived. Her mother stepped beside her, voice as cold as frost. "You brought them in a carriage. You can take them back the same way." Seeing no path forward, the steward held out the letter with both hands. "At least this. Please don't refuse the letter." Ailen hesitated. Then, with a clenched jaw, she accepted the letter, but nothing else. One by one, the servants reloaded the wagons, the gifts departing just as grandly as they had arrived. She turned away. The letter trembled in her hands. Her heart thundered with anger, confusion, longing. Her mother approached gently. "I'll handle things here. Go to your room." Ailen climbed the stairs, the letter clutched tight in her hand. The nerve of him! A man who hadn't spoken a word to her in their last life now staged a public spectacle. She opened the letter, expecting grand declarations or persuasive reasoning. But it wasn't that. It asked if she was sleeping well, if she was still drinking cold water, if she was being careful not to skip meals. Trivial things, mundane things, but somehow they pierced her. Where was this concern when she needed it most? When she'd begged for his affection in another life and been met with silence. "Don't you know," she whispered to the paper, "that girl is dead." Still, the gentleness in those words stirred something dangerous in her chest. Could it be? He truly loved her now. But no, there was another explanation. There always was. He had felt her power as a guide. In this empire, where guides were a rarity, perhaps he simply wanted to bind her to him again, to own her energy, as he once had. But she wasn't that girl anymore. She had tasted freedom, been cherished by family. She would never return to being someone's silent shadow. Her thoughts drifted to her father. She missed him terribly. As if summoned by her longing, a familiar voice echoed through the house. "Wife! I'm home! Ailen rushed to the window. Her father looked up and grinned. Ailen, my daughter, look how much you've grown! Downstairs, she found one of Hill's vassals speaking to her father. He had been welcomed inside to continue their conversation. Worry tugged at her. Would her refusal affect her father's standing? Then her mother's voice called her over. Ailen, come meet Baron Iran. He's from the neighboring territory and came with your father. The older man's face lit up. So this is the little girl from back then. You've become a fine young lady. Ailen bowed respectfully. Did they know each other from her forgotten childhood? Just then, a young man approached with luggage in tow. Father, where should I place these? The Baron turned to him. Morgan, greet the lady properly. The boy hesitated, then bowed. Miss Ailen, it's good to see you again. Oh, look at you two, the elders chuckled. So formal. You used to follow Morgan around, calling him Big Brother. Ailen blinked. Had she? The Baron's wife offered an explanation. Our dear Ailen was very ill back then. She doesn't remember much. Morgan smiled kindly. That's all right. I'm just happy to see you healthy. Her mother suggested a walk through the garden. Go on. Show them around. The Baron extended an arm with a playful grin. If your father scolds me later, so be it. But I won't let a lady walk alone. Ailen accepted. Beside her, Morgan nervously wiped his palms on his tunic before offering his arm with courtly formality. Would you permit me the honor, miss? She smiled and nodded, unaware that his ears had turned bright red. And so, the past, clouded and fractured, began to stir once more.